All right, welcome back. I'm jumping right into the middle of the PLTW incline plane wedge and screw presentation. So here is the wedge right here. So the wedge is based on the incline plane, and it functions, as it says here, as a moving incline plane. It starts out as a wider end and tapers to a thin edge. Can be used for splitting. It could be used for raising up a heavy body. If you wedge a wedge, say I have a block like this, I could wedge a wedge underneath it, and by pushing that, this would go up, right? So raising heavy bodies, or it could be used for tightening by being driven into something. So maybe I have a gap. If I erase that, when I think of a wedge, people install windows. So let's say I have a window here and I'm installing it into a space in a house. I could shove a wedge into here and it would make it tighter, a tighter fit by using a couple of wedges. Not a very good drawing, but that's what they're trying to get at by tightening by being driven into something. So how do we figure out what we're talking about with mechanical advantage as it relates to a wedge? Well, IMA, again, just like everything else, is still DE over DR, but similar to the incline plane, we also have what is, we're going to be calling it L and H is what they're going to use. So I'll just jump ahead here. The distance traveled by our effort is L, and the reason we consider this vertical distance here to be L is because our effort force would be driven down from above. And so when we're driving down, it's trying to make this thing move, so our effort is trying to make it move down. And we'll say that the effort it would move would be the height, or the length, I guess we'll call it the length, the L of our wedge. And then the distance traveled by the resistance. The reason that the distance traveled by the resistance is this much is because you're trying to fit a wedge inside of, let's say, some kind of a block of some kind. Well, this block wasn't moving very well. It was together and complete, and when you drove this wedge in, it split out in this direction, and the distance that it split was this H direction. So our distance of resistance is the same as H, okay? And so you have, again, L over H for our wedge. Same concept, you're just using what we know about wedges, or what you know about wedges to figure out which one is our DE and which one is our DR. And so the IMA of this wedge is our 10-inch length divided by our 3-inch. They call it H. I don't know that I would call it height necessarily, but they use height. Again, instead of using L and H, maybe it's just easier to use DE and DR. That's what I like to use. Then it's always the same. Our AMA, still just force of resistance divided by force of effort. On a wedge, these pictures are oftentimes going to show your resistance force in two spots, but it's not adding them together or anything like that. It's just your total value of resistance. Again, because you're thinking of this would be like surrounding something and then you're wedging into there. So like the resistance to split all of this material is just surrounding it as 700 pounds. So you don't worry about adding anything together. It's just an even 700 pounds of pressure stopping you from moving in, or that you're having to overcome. So you use the 700 divided by 250, 2.8 to 1, and then you have the efficiency of the wedge, again, AMA divided by IMA times 100 to give you a percentage, and you get 84% in this case. So wedge is very similar to incline plane. It's very similar to the rest of our simple machines in the fact of mechanical advantage. You just have to know where's your DE and where's your DR, where are your forces being applied, and then you can solve, and it's no issue. So we'll end the wedge there.